Okay, so we have more than 45 people, so I think we'll start. So welcome everyone. Welcome to the event Tech 101. So before starting, let me give a brief introduction about DSC. So Developer Students Club is an initiative started by Google to help students learn new technologies. Like if you see the for the past 10 years, there has been a rapid enhancement in technology in all fields. So whatever we thought was correct 10 years ago has been completely replaced by new tech here. So as BTech students as and engineering students, we should be keeping up with that trend. But in unfortunately, our university classes and like engineering classes, especially in India, are mostly theoretical. So if you are a computer science student, what you'll be learning is like basic programming, how to write better code, or basic data structures, algorithm, how to optimize this code. So all these things you will be learning in your classes. So apart from that, there are many technologies which are required to be learned by you so that you get a good career, good job, and your future will be secure. So that's all about the event today. So it will be based on the domains you can focus on and various communities in and around KUSAT. So where you will get the best inside KUSAT and around KUSAT. So which are the places you can explore and have fun and learn as well. So let me introduce today's speaker as Siddharth Shivakumar. He is a system engineer at TCS. Above all, he was a student at Cochin University or SOE CS, and he has been in the 2020 pass out branch. So he has spent his last 4 years in KUSAT. So I think there is none better than him to talk about all the opportunities that KUSAT can offer apart from the classroom. So without any further ado, over to you, Siddharth.
Hi guys, hello. Thank you Abhinav for the introduction. It is great to see 58 of you in this call today. I hope I give you something very, very special. I give you some important things to note in this journey of yours towards technology, computer science technology to be precise. Without much wait, I think just a network check before that. Abhinav, can you confirm that you can see my screen and my voice?
Yeah, yeah, everything is clear, Siddharth.
Cool, cool. Let's begin. So, as you all know, we are here for a talk titled Tech 101. Uh, I'm not sure how many of you have really wondered what 101 means. 101 is an American term, is an American terminology which is used to depict a lot of sessions which are for beginners specifically, which is why we have named this Tech 101 because this, I think, will be a start to your technical careers. Here we'll be talking about different tech domains, different paths professionally that you can take while you pursue technology, technical communities in Kerala, and opportunities that you will have. So Abhinav has already given a brief description of me. I think I'll just briefly touch on who I am. As Abhinav said, I work with Tata Consultancy Services. I was a COVID hire, which says I was hired in the year 2020. I graduated in the year 2020 in the month of April. I work as a systems engineer. Systems engineer is essentially a term that they give to all the freshers that join. Just to touch upon what I work on right now, I work as a machine learning engineer. I work on certain machine learning systems for a client. Before I started my journey with Tata Consultancy Services, I had the opportunity to work at EY. EY is, if you don't know, EY is the abbreviation for Ernst and Young, which is one of the big fours in the world in the consulting firms area. I had an opportunity to work with them as a cybersecurity intern and blockchain intern at various locations. The most important thing that connects me with all of you in the call today is I am an alumni of School of Engineering, KUSAT. I was an alumni of the Department of Computer Science and Engineering. Diving straight to what you're going to hear me talk about today, I'll be talking about three main things: tech domains, tech communities in Kerala, and opportunities in Kerala. Before I begin, I'd like to tell you that this is a very informal talk. Please feel free to shoot questions at me. I would suggest you jot down all your questions in the chat so that when I'm done with the presentation, we can go through all your questions and I'll try answering them if it's within the time frame, or I'll get back to you personally if I am not able to cover this within the time limit. Also, you can feel free to ask me questions in English, Hindi, or Malayalam. That is an advantage that I bring to the table today. Also, if you have questions which are not related to tech but are related to CUSAT on the whole, you can ask me that. If it is related to tech but outside of college, you can also ask me that. So pretty much anything that is remotely related with technology or CUSAT, your college, university, you can shoot that onto me. I'll first start talking about tech domains. By the word tech domains, I mean the path that you can professionally or as a student pursue in the world of computer science and technology. I am sure you all have heard about this somewhere or the other, the word development or the word developer. People say people work as a developer, a software developer to be precise. Let's break the myth about this. Let's get to know what this really means. Development in a very nerdy, uh, I'm sorry for all the background noise if you hear. I live very close to the highway, so this will happen. I'm really sorry for that. So yeah, to give you a definition of what development means, process of programming and testing websites and applications is called development. You all know what programming means. Programming is writing a piece of code in a particular language of your choice to achieve a goal, and testing would mean to ensure that this program gives you an expected output when given a particular input. Let's now look at two major categories in the world of development. Firstly, is the web development area. The second is the mobile development area. I've put in two screenshots on the slide. If you can see, if you look at the image on the upper half of the slide, I have shown the screenshot of the typical Amazon website. An Amazon website, if you might recall, you use a user agent, you use a client, a browser, if you call it that, to enter a URL, a universal resource locator, which in this case is www.amazon.com or amazon.in, to get this particular website on your screen. That is how websites work in very layman's term. If you come down to mobile development is a whole new scenario where you have to download an application from Play Store or the App Store based on the device that you use. And after the installation is done, you use it seamlessly. So the differences here, I think, are clear. Given the differences in the idea of web and mobile development, there are skills that both of them need. But I would suggest you begin with web development to start with, so you get an idea of what you're really getting into. To give you an idea of some of the necessary skills that you might require to get started with web development are, you will have to know three things essentially: hypertext markup language, abbreviated as HTML, cascading style sheets, abbreviated as CSS, and the language JavaScript. I know this is a lot to take in on the first day of a Tech 101 session, but let me assure you that there are sessions planned ahead to take you into this journey of web development in detail. All I wish to do here is to introduce you to certain terms and certain things, or certain, let's say, buzzwords in the world of technology, and get you introduced to them so that when you get into a boot camp or a session which requires basic knowledge, you're ready for it. Some of the resources that I wish to suggest are essentially three websites. One is called Geeks for Geeks. Make a point of this. Geeks for Geeks will be your savior for 4 years of college. Whatever subject you learn, Geeks for Geeks has the answer to all of that, including preparing for placement interviews. W3 Schools and Tutorial Point also has solutions to a lot of stuff. But here specifically, because I'm talking about development, yes, development, if you want help with HTML, if you want help with CSS, if you want help with JavaScript, this is the place you would want to go and look into. But what you should actually be doing is Google what you want, select websites that match with these that I've already shown to you on the screen, and select those websites to view your results. Do not go directly to this website and look for this particular term that you're looking for, because I don't think all of these have a search functionality in them. You should first Google and then find out a Geeks for Geeks link which answers you, or the W3 Schools link, or a Tutorials Point link which answers your question. Coming down to the second domain, this domain is called user interface and user experience. you will not find a lot of people using that big a name. People prefer to call it UI UX. What is UI UX? In layman's term, UI UX is the look and feel of a software. To give you an idea of that, how that works, if you see user experience written to uh, the second half of the slide, as in the lower portion of the slide, you will see a cursor moving. The cursor right now clicked on the save button there. If you noticed, save first moved on to a state which was called saving, and then it showed saved. Unlike bad, which just showed save and saved. If this is hard for you to relate, let me give you an example. Let's say you have a sign. Uh, if anybody is on, if anybody has unmuted themselves, could you go back to mute, please? Because I get an echo when you unmute yourself. Great, thanks. So please make sure that you're on mute because I get an echo when people unmute. I'll give you time to talk. If you have questions, is that why you unmuted yourself? If you have questions, you can get your questions down to chat. All right. So let's think of a normal sign-in page where you have to enter your name. Let's say you're logging into a particular website. You need to enter your email ID and your password and click on the button sign in. So you might have noticed in every good-looking or good user experience-based website, when you click on the button sign in, the sign in button would either change to a loading circular bar, or it would somehow indicate that your request is being loaded. But which is exactly what is being depicted here in the good portion of the user experience. In the bad portion, people wouldn't know if something is happening in the background. So what users like us would end up doing is we would hit the sign in button multiple times, which would mess up everything. So if you have a plan to actually show the user what is happening in the background, create a level of transparency in there, users will get an idea of where he is and what he is trying to do. I hope that explains. User interface, on the other hand, is the look that you give to a particular website. So you might see two different images on your screen right now. On the left, you see a very dull image, which does not highlight all the details that are in the image. On the right, you will see an image where a proper choice of font colors, text size, all of that has been put into use, which makes the data that it is trying to depict, which makes the information that it is trying to depict very easy to understand. So the most important thing here, when you are getting into the world of designing, when you are creating user interfaces, when you're creating user experiences for your users, you need to make sure you need to understand the crowd that you're going to cater to. Let's say you're making an app, you're making a game. Let's say you're making a game. So ideally, the game that you're going to make, let's say you're making another cool version of PUBG. You know, PUBG will be played by people anywhere below 30 years of age, or let's say 25 years of age. These kind of people have an experience of handling apps. They know how apps work. They know what button would actually do what action. So for that kind of a crowd, you can go ahead and use classy and modernized user interfaces because you know they already have a hang of using a lot of applications. But on the other hand, if you're catering to an older crowd, let's say people who are above the retirement age in India, if you're catering to them, you would have to make a very simple and user-friendly is the word here, user-friendly kind of an application for them to use, because only then will they be able to understand of what is happening. Which is why you will notice most of the government websites are made very plain and very simple, just to answer to questions or just to do what it is supposed to do. It has nothing fancy in it. This is why they do it, because they have to cater to a crowd which is very, very, very large. Coming down to necessary skills that you will require here, design principles is a must. By design principles, I mean, if you notice in the previous slide that I'm showing to you right now, the user interface where it is going wrong, it is going wrong only because the creator definitely did not have, or the designer that definitely did not have strong hold on the design principles. He did not know a lot about what colors go together. He did not know a lot about what fonts to use, or what font sizes to use, or what font colors to use, or what brightness means, what contrast means, and all of that design stuff that is included. You need to have a hold on that to be able to be a good UI developer. Apart from that, if you have a hold of all the design stuff, you are an artist, you have the artist in you blooming right now, you would need experience in using design applications, because this is a digital design that we are talking about. User interfaces are all digital designs. You will need to have experience in digital design apps like Figma. Figma is available online. It's a web application altogether. You can do everything online. If you want to have application installed on your computer and use that, Adobe XD is the option. These are not the only options that are available, but I wanted to bring to you some of the applications which are user friendly. Figma and Adobe XD are user friendly. Some inspirations as resources that you could have are, so Behance and Dribbble. If you see in the first point, the two words Behance and Dribbble, they are websites where designers showcase their work to the world. You can go there, you can log on to Behance or Dribbble and look at the work, the awesome work in designing, that designing and user interface. Well, when I say designing, I mean user interfaces and user experience, both of them. So you will get an idea of what you can actually do. So unless you have an idea of what are your options, you will never know what to choose. Unless you have an idea of what the other people are doing, you will never have an idea of how much you can expand yourself lengthly or breadth-wise. So you go down, take inspirations from Behance and Dribbble. You do not have to definitely copy all of what they are actually doing. Just get an idea of what is happening. Come back. If you want to now build it, use Figma or Adobe XD and build your stuff. So the second link that you see, the second link specifies a lot of books and blogs that would be necessary for you in your digital designing journey, giving you an idea of what are the essential terms and stuff that you will need. I think I'll share this slide in the group, in the group that you're already added, so that you can have a look at this at the link. Coming down to one of the most discussed topics right now, artificial intelligence. I'm sure artificial intelligence is something you've heard of. And when you think of artificial intelligence, self-driving cars are is the ultimate thing that comes to your mind. Explaining artificial intelligence, it is intelligence demonstrated by machines. Machines do not have intelligence built in themselves. You give them an idea of how to learn stuff, what to learn, and then they implement on data that they have not seen. I know this is getting a little bit complicated, so I'll take you through some examples to get it sorted. On the right of your screen, if you see, there is an image of an email that you've received, which says, do you prefer to meet? The last line says, do you prefer to meet Monday or Tuesday? So there's a question that has been short. I'm sorry for all the noise, but there is a question pointed at you asking if you prefer to meet on Monday or Tuesday. Gmail as an app was clever enough to give you suggested auto replies. If you look at the image closer to the taskbar below, it says, let's do Monday. Monday works for me. Either day works for me. How do you think this happened? How do you think the email was analyzed and an auto reply was generated? This comes under a category called natural language processing. To break this stuff, natural language is essentially the language that we speak in, humans speak in. This is in English language, so it is natural language. Processing is any kind of processing you do to get a result. So here what you do is you analyze emails that come in, and based on the query or based on what the email is expecting as a reply, you suggest automated replies for the user or for the person who this email has been delivered to, for ease of use of the app. Moving on, I'm not sure if the image is very clear, but the image shows the Google Lens application that is available on all our phones these days. The image shows somebody pointing towards a piece of printed text, or let's say handwritten text for that matter, pointing their phones onto a printed or handwritten text, and then using the Google Lens application to identify text. Let's say maybe copy it from there to some digital document store. So how do you think letters are recognized as it is and then brought into a digital format? This is another application of artificial intelligence, and this category is called optical character recognition. Character recognition is self-explanatory. Optical because you're using optics, or you're actually pointing your camera towards it to kind of extract data and then understand what it might be. Moving on, object detection. Object detection is yet another thing that I'm sure all of us have done. You might have pointed to a particular species of flower to understand what it was. You might have pointed Google Lens towards a building to know what it is. Let's say to a particular breed of dog to understand what breed it was. We've all done that. In the image, if you see, the person is pointing towards, in the image, if you see, the person is pointing towards a dress to get an idea of where he or she can buy it from. All this is an example of object detection. Object detection can be used in the example that we talked about earlier, self-driving cars. So let's say we are driving on Indian roads. Driving on Indian roads is the most difficult thing on earth because you have people walking in from all over. How do you think Tesla is set to roll out cars here in India in this year 2021? How do you think they would identify a dog running in front of your car, or how would it identify pedestrians? How would it do all that? They make use of object detection to do all of that. Necessary skills that you would need. You would need to have strong, very, very, very strong hold on your programming fundamentals. Let me really specify on this point because I've seen a lot of freshers getting into artificial intelligence because they think it is the hot topic right now. That kind of enthusiasm is really, really, really good. But then I would suggest you take the longer route, understand all the programming languages you can, get a hold of programming principles on the whole, and then slowly move on to complicated topics such as artificial intelligence. The other thing that people do not like about artificial intelligence is a lot of probability and statistics is involved in it. So you would need to get an idea of the math that you're going to study in your college. For a computer science students, I had the 2015 syllabus. I'm not sure if that your syllabus has the same, but for 2015 syllabus, we had math till the 5th semester, I think. Yeah. So you would need to have certain idea of what probability is, what statistics is, what are the different measures of tendencies in probability and all of that stuff, and statistics, I mean. And you have to have a command over 2 languages. You can choose between them, either Python or MATLAB. Personally, I would choose Python because Python is easier to learn and is accepted industry-wide. MATLAB also is accepted to a certain extent, but the market is a little less. But Python is your ultimate thing to go to. Resources. So not many people have the courage to do this course on Coursera. It is called Machine Learning by Andrew Ng. This, to be very honest, is very, very complicated. I think it is spread over 5 weeks, and you need to be really enthusiastic about it to be able to complete this. And there are certain AI blogs as well that you can visit. But then let me tell you again, do not rush into artificial intelligence as of now. Get a hold on everything else. Be confident in what you're getting into, and then start your journey with artificial intelligence. Next thing I'm going to talk about is cybersecurity. This, I know, sounds really, really, really cool. Let's jump into a scenario where in one of the Hollywood movies where you are the CEO of one of the companies and your CTO, the Chief Technical Officer, rushes to you and says, "We have been attacked. All our servers have been hacked." And then you guys decide to call one of your special cybersecurity analysts into the room, and this guy comes in with a hoodie, with a very fancy laptop, smashing live out of all the keys on his keyboard. And then he comes back with terms saying, "I managed to reverse engineer the hack. I know the location to the person who originated the attack," and all that stuff. Let me tell you, that is exactly how cybersecurity is exaggerated. I'm sorry I broke that to you, but then cybersecurity is very, very, very exaggerated. Not everybody who's into cybersecurity is doing that job. There are people who do that. There are people who do very mission critical stuff, but cybersecurity is not all about that stuff. So the definition again is a very nerdy one. Body of technologies, processes, and practices designed to protect networks, devices, programs, and data from attack, damage, or unauthorized accesses. To give you a broad idea of what things cybersecurity can involve, Cybersecurity firstly can involve the scenario that we just dealt with of an attack on an industry, an attack on a government server, a government agency, and recovering from that. That is one aspect of it. It is called threat threat risk management. Essentially, they call it risk management. There is another wing of cybersecurity which is just monitoring all the activity that is happening in a particular network. So this particular thing happens in something called as the Security Operations Center. Looks very fancy with all those very big monitors set up, a lot of graphs going up and down and all that. So people sit there, watch the network, look out for suspicious activity, and report and act against it. That is one aspect of it. So we all call it hackers in the lingo we are adept to. So there are two types of hackers essentially, white and black. They also suggest a mix of white and black, and they call it a gray hacker. So if you see, there are two images on your screen right now. The one below, his name is Kevin Mitnick. I don't think anybody of you would have heard about him. Kevin Mitnick is a very famous cybersecurity analyst, cybersecurity engineer. He has a company of his own, Mitnick Securities. If you go to YouTube and look up his name, you'll find a lot of talks that he gives to a very diverse crowd about a lot of stuff related to cybersecurity. I strongly suggest you go down, check off his videos. The other very strange logo, I would say, that you see on the top is of a group which calls themselves Anonymous. We might have come across Anonymous so you might have seen the hashtag Anonymous trending on Twitter. I'm sure you might have seen that. So Anonymous is a group of hacktivists put together, group of hacktivists who claim to hack into government agencies, let's say industrialists' data servers, and trying to expose all their wrongdoings. So the kind of method that they're using is not legitimate, but then their final outcome or the final intention would be very positive. These kind of hackers are called gray hat hackers, while Kevin Mitnick, who does it very professionally and does it for the good, is called white hat hackers. Black hat hackers are stuff who hack into. You might have read in the newspapers that Paytm's database was hacked. All the data is now available on darknet. Your data is being sold and all that. So this kind of illegitimate stuff is done by black hat hackers. Moving on, the necessary skills you will need for this, unfortunately, is everything. You will need to know your computer inside out because you're dealing with a lot of stuff, a lot of variety of stuff. Only if you know your computer inside out will you be able to protect it bit by bit. To get started with, I would suggest some Udemy courses. The hack to identifying what Udemy course is good is looking at the ratings. You can also Google to find out the top 10 Udemy courses are available. Udemy at times gives its courses for free. That is exactly when you should do Udemy courses. I would not suggest paying for Udemy courses. If you think Udemy courses are not free at the point you want to learn, get back to YouTube, search for particular topics, and I'm sure you will get very good videos there as well. But yeah, if you have your Udemy courses, do that, because Udemy courses are very well structured together as a course. In YouTube, if you go down to YouTube to do a similar thing, you might have to hunt for a lot of courses. That is a bit of additional effort that you will have to put in from your end. But Udemy, yes, you need to do it if it's free. The other thing is Cybrary. Cybrary is dedicated only to, Cybrary is a dedicated collection of videos, I will say, of cybersecurity tutorials, and it is free. Internet of Things is another very fascinating thing that you should all be knowing of. Internet of Things is enabling things around you to connect with each other. Let me give you a scenario. Let's say you're driving home for work. Your car reaches the gate of your compound. There's a camera which recognizes you. The gates open on its own. You get in to the compound. Your garage door opens on its own because it kind of understands that you are coming in with driving your car. You drop off your car in the garage, come out of the garage, and by that time, let's say the air conditioning in your house is on, the lights have been turned on, because it knows you are coming in, and things have to be in place when you are in. So all that thing is something that we do on a daily basis, but we do not have all that smartness, let me say, smartness in the things that are around us. So Internet of Things is basically converting all the dumb things that you've been using until now in your world, give them the ability to connect to the internet, talk to each other, as in talk to other devices, and give you a better experience of life. That is exactly what Internet of Things means. In the image that I'm showing you on the screen, if you see, there's a laptop, there's a printer, there's a fridge. Let's say a fridge would know what temperature to adjust to, if when to close the door. Let's say there's a washing machine which knows when to turn on, when to turn off, and all that. Let's say everything is smart around you and everything is connected. Life would be so much easier. That is what Internet of Things aims at. Necessary skills: you would need to have a little bit of understanding of electronics, because all the programming in this topic is done using microcontrollers and microcomputers. I'm not getting into that because that is out of the scope for now. You will need to learn a very little of electronics, is what I would want to say. Development skills also is required, not necessary, but is required, because at the end of the day, let's say you want everything to be controlled by a touch of a button on your phone. To create a interface for your users on your phone, you will need to have development skills. You will need to have an app setup, or let's say a website setup. So you will need to have a little bit of development skills there as well. Resources: Hackster and Kickstarter. Hackster.io gives you an opportunity to participate in various IoT-based competitions organized worldwide. Kickstarter is basically where you get your idea up along with a plan of how you're going to do it and images of what it would look like. And normal people will come down, and if they like your idea, they would end up investing in your idea. And out of the goodwill that they showed to you, you would end up sending them, let's say, free products. That is how things work in Kickstarter. But if you want to get some inspiration of the kind of work people have been doing, you should visit Kickstarter and look at the great work that everybody around the world has been doing. And there are also device-centric courses. By device, I mean microcontrollers or microcomputers that you're going to use. To name one, you might use a Raspberry Pi, which is a microcomputer. You might use that for Internet of Things. So there are courses centric to a particular device, which is available online. If you just go down and Google Raspberry Pi tutorials, you'll get very easy tutorials with videos and blogs to get you started. Last but not the least, these are two things that I wanted to touch on: augmented reality, virtual reality, and blockchain. I'm sure all of you have seen this a VR headset once in your life. A lot of you might also have had a chance to experience that virtual reality world. So what it does is, when you wear the VR gear, it will take you into a virtual world where you will experience things that you will not experience in the reality that you are in right now. So that is also a very booming domain in the world of computer science. People are being hired as developers of VR apps. That is something you might want to look at. On the right, if you see, you'll see a screenshot of the game Pokemon Go. So if you've ever played Pokemon Go, you will know when you turn on your mobile camera, you would see Pokemons in front of you. In the real world, when you look through your camera, you will have a Pokeball which you throw at them, and then the Pokeball would catch your Pokemon. But all of this is happening in real world. You are not being taken to some other virtual reality to experience stuff, but this is happening in the real world. This is being augmented in the real world, hence the name augmented reality. Blockchain. So to explain blockchain, a lot of people use the example of Bitcoin. I'm sure you have heard of Bitcoin, the cryptocurrency that has been in the talks for a couple of while now. Bitcoin is an implementation of blockchain, but it is not blockchain. Bitcoin is not equal to blockchain, but Bitcoin is a subset of blockchain. Let's put it like that. So just to give you an idea of what blockchain is a chain of connected blocks using cryptographical hashes. So the topic here that you would need to learn before you start with blockchain is cryptography. And I would say learn your networking basics well, learn your development skills, learn your cryptography, and then go to blockchain. This is another topic that I would not suggest uh, beginners get into. You have enough time. You have 4 years to experiment. Take some time, get hold of all the basic stuff, and then maybe experiment with blockchain. So that was all the serious stuff that I had to talk about. Starting now will all be fun. Tech communities. Um, I'm sure you know what the literal word community means, but tech community is essentially a community of people, a group of people who are connected by technology. Technology knows no boundaries. You can have any technology that you would want to share, or you would want to learn, or you want to just discuss with other people. Communities are a way of doing all of that. So, by this definition, I'm sure you would have a very boring idea in your mind, which would look like people sitting together talking about very technical things, and I don't want to really get into that. I know that is what you're looking at right now. But give me some more time. Let me explain what happens in a community, and then think about it. One specific community that I want to mention today is TinkerHub Foundation. TinkerHub calls itself a community of tinkerers, makers, policy geeks, and students working towards mapping and empowering people who share a passion to innovate. Those are very strong words, but let me simplify them for you. TinkerHub is a community, is a foundation which was started by uh, some of the graduates of SOE, the college that we all of us come from. They decided to have a community where people feel comfortable to come in. There is no boundary of knowing or not knowing. There is no boundary set in between beginners and experts. You will find every single person who is very good with tech in this community, and it is free of cost to get into their community. All you have to do is when you so there is also a TinkerHub community, a chapter of the community in our college. I'm not sure if Ajal is in the call. Ajal is the lead from our college. So this was started by, so right now this is headed by Meher Musa, who is was from the 2015 batch IT department. There are a lot of other people along with him who helped him start this journey. But I would say if you're somebody who wants to do very well in the world of tech, who wants to connect with a lot of people who are very good at tech, this is the place that you should be going to. Going down to Pehiya Foundation, this is another foundation that I wanted to talk about because they do a very they have a very different kind of approach when it comes to a technology community. Pehiya, established in 2017, is a community-based non-profit working towards the cause of bridging the gender gap in technology, the primary focus of computer science and programming. Pehiya works towards eliminating gender gap and including diversity and inclusivity, irrespective of gender, irrespective of age, irrespective of your proficiency in technology. So this is the place you would want to go to if you want to have an atmosphere where people are not being discriminated. I'm not saying others discriminate, but this is more of an inclusive crowd because they aim at working towards that. Moving on, these are some more communities that I cannot talk about, unfortunately, in detail because I'm running short of time. But GDG Cochin is another very famous, very active community in Cochin. They have chapters all over the world. They have GDG Bangalore, which is very active. There is GDG Trivandrum, which is also active. GDG Cochin, we are fortunate enough to have an organizer from our college in GDG Cochin, which is Naseem Shah. GDG Cochin's most famous event is the Deaf Fest that they organize every year. Unfortunately, due to COVID right now, it is not happening offline. Once you get back, please make sure you go there. It's completely free and you get stuff free of cost. They give you t-shirts, they give you free pizza. Yes, they give you free pizza to eat. One whole regular pizza all to yourself. AWS UG Kochi, if you see here, I'm sorry, AWS Amazon Web Services, which is a group of professionals towards cloud computing, not cloud computing, but towards the technology of cloud on the whole. This is a place where you would want to go if you are into cloud and Amazon Web Services. Developer Circles Kochi is a group of students provided by Facebook, so you can join there and know about the latest updates in the uh, from the products that Facebook has. Let's say Instagram brings in a new features, you will get to know. You go attend their meetings and all that. Student Developer Society again is a very common word, very common society you will hear about if you're in Kochi. IC FOSS. FOSS is free and open source software. Free and open source software is another thing that you would want to kind of understand about, but because of lack of time, I cannot get into it, unfortunately. But I am sure you will get to hear of it in the sessions to come. Finally, we also have Association of Computer Engineering Students that is run by the students of School of Engineering. This is if you're very scared to get out of your comfort zone and meet a lot of new people, this is the place you should start with. You can go down. So we invite people from every branch, every department, irrespective of where they come from. I remember last year when we were conducting sessions, we had people from the fire and safety department, the electrical department, everybody comes in to join us. So what we do is when your classes get over at 4 p.m., we sit down in one of the computer labs, and then we take up a new topic in computer science, and we help you understand. As from we, I mean the seniors help you understand. So this is kind of a peer-to-peer learning advantage that you would have. So we call the session as the session at 4 because it happens at 4 p.m. We had also started a initiative where we had quiz at 6, which happened every Saturday, where we would give you a random quiz to attempt, and it's actually a fun way to learn very new things. Yeah, finally coming down to all the events that communities host, if you can see all the excitement in everybody's face in these pictures, you will get to understand how much fun it is to go to a community event. On your left, if you see, is a picture from the GDG Kochi. I think it was from one of the Deaf Fests, I'm not sure. So you go there, you just get to know a lot of people, you talk to them, chat with them. If you're interested, you get to know about some technology, have great food, get a t-shirt and come back. That is it. You get to hear from a lot of people who are doing excellently in the world of tech. You get free sessions by them. It's fun. If you look at this guy here who is screaming with joy on having all those pizza to himself, this is exactly what each and everybody will be looking like when you go down to one of these sessions. One very important thing, one very important event that you should be part of is called a hackathon. A hackathon is an event. The duration varies. It can be a 24, 36, or a 48-hour hackathon. That is what people usually do. So in a hackathon, people from all over the world come in to solve, let's say, so there are two kinds of hackathons, one which will have a problem statement, one which will not have a problem statement. The ones which have a problem statement, you are supposed to go there, form a team with people you know or people you do not know, that is up to you. Work towards building a solution towards the statement. The solution can be a software or a hardware. To give you a very quick example, let's say you want to promote jute products that are being produced by your locality. What can you do? You can build a website, you can build an e-commerce website, you can build an online shopping website where people can come and buy from your website, buy from the local locality, buy from your local locality. Those are kind of stuff that people do in a hackathon. Looks and sounds very serious, but hackathon is really fun. Like I showed you, hackathon is yet another community event, but the other thing is when you go down to a community event, the end goal is that you just come out learning something. In a hackathon, you learn, you implement, you network, you have good food, you enjoy. That is the main motto. On the right, I thought this is essential for you to know. Cochin University was among the top 25 semi-finalists in a hackathon that was organized by EY. The team was called Data Pirates. It was a group of third years from the computer science department, if I was not wrong. On the left, you will see some of the very common or very recent hackathons that had happened very recently. So speaking of achievements of the students, I thought this had to be brought into your notice. These are some very cool achievements of students, mostly student-only initiatives that students of SOE, your seniors, have been doing. The first two images on the top are from something called as the Mission 1 Lakh Feet. On the left, you will see mission control room kind of a setup where similar to what they have in a space launch. So here, what was happening is they decided to send a payload. A payload is a lot of electronics plugged together. Let's put it that way right now. And this was taken to 1 lakh feet above ground level, about sea level. The second image that you see on the right is captured by one of the cameras that was in the payload. If you can look at that and imagine how much 1 lakh feet is, you can actually make out the curvature of your planet. That is high. That is how high 1 lakh feet is. So they kind of achieved that, but this was not an official attempt. So unfortunately, they could not file a world record. But unofficially, this was a world record. But because they achieved the height of 1,81,433 feet. Images on the bottom of your screens is the left one is from a European rover challenge that some of our students had participated in from different branches. I think not from a very particular branch. So they had to build a Mars rover, a prototype of a Mars rover, which you can see in the image. So this Mars rover was, I think, among the top 30 teams globally, was ranked among the top 30 teams globally. On the right, if you see, I don't think that is very clear, but that was another design contest where two of the students from CUSAT were awarded the second place globally. The first place was achieved by Brazil. Second place was jointly shared by Sri Lanka and India. And from India, the team was from Cochin University of Science and Technology. Basil, who is a member of this community, was a part of this team as well. So that is how much you're getting into. That is the kind of opportunities that you will have once you're in college. If you might have noticed in the previous slide that I talked about hackathons, Makeathon is a hackathon that is by CUSAT, from CUSAT, not for CUSAT, but anybody can participate. So this is run in collaboration with CITIC. CITIC is a business incubator. I'll talk about that very shortly. So we have a hackathon organized every year. We just finished the third edition of Makeathon. I think it was before you guys came into college. That had to be held online. But if you can see, there is a person working. There are people clicking pictures. There are people enjoying a Red Bull. Everything happens in a hackathon. It is not a very nerdy stuff to be in. Some programs and scholarships that you might want to know about. So some of the student ambassador programs that you'll hear of are GitHub Student Expert. GitHub is a place where you upload your code, collaborate. This is a separate session altogether. I don't want to spoil it for you by summarizing it in a couple of sentences. But GitHub is a software, let's say. So what usually happens is all these companies, all these leading tech companies, they have a campus ambassador who is appointed in a college. So let's say, so for example, Abhinav right here is the DSC lead, the Developer Students Club lead for CUSAT. The Developer Students Club lead for CUSAT. He was appointed only because he had applied to such a initiative, and then he had undergone interviews, and it is a very difficult step, but then it is a matter of pride to be selected among so many hundreds of applications that come in. So these are some of the student expert programs that run by GitHub, DSC, Microsoft, Dell, LinkedIn. The list goes on. You'll have to do your work to research on what are the other things, but it is really, 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 really interesting to be part of them because you get to interact with professionals directly from Microsoft, Dell, LinkedIn. I am sure he has interacted with a lot of employees of Google as well. So you get to do that. You get a lot of free T-shirts. You get to attend a lot of offline and online meetings. It is so much fun. On the right, you'll see three names. These are scholarships that are given to particular students coming from the tech background. Grace Hopper Scholarship is for women only. I'm not sure of the requisites on the whole, but you might want to note down these names. Grace Hopper Scholarship. So in fact, if you get selected for the Grace Hopper Scholarship, you're taken to US to actually be a part of a team which would work inside the Google office for let's say a 6 month period, and then you come back. So imagine what kind of an experience that would be. There is Google Step internship, which I think is only is for everybody from the first and the second year of college, I think so. There is Adobe India Women in Technology Scholarship. There are a lot of opportunities waiting for you. You just have to take in a little more effort to go and learn about them and apply. Never, never, ever keep yourself back. Go ahead, apply to stuff. You do not have to worry because this is all applying online. So you would not have to face somebody for an interview unless you get selected for the last stage. But if you do, that's such a great thing, right? Student startups, this is something that needs to be addressed. CITIC, if you remember, I talked about in the earlier slide, CITIC is the technology business incubator of CUSAT. So to break down those words, if you have an idea which you think can be a potential startup, let's say if you can turn this into a business, you can go to CITIC, present in front of the director of CITIC, and if he approves of your idea, you're given a space to work. The image that you see is of CITIC. Unfortunately, I could not get a better image, but this is the image of CITIC, how CITIC looks like. You have cubicles where you can sit and work. You have internet, you have AC, you have access to so many things. There's also a 3D printer inside. You go there, sit, work on your idea. They also award you grace marks for the kind of effort that you're putting in, and attendance as well. So, but I'm not saying you should get in here only because you will get marks and attendance. That is not the agenda. But you need to do this because you are not spending in any money. Like Innovation and Entrepreneurship Development Center, long for IEDC. IEDC cell in a college would fund you for an idea. The funds might range from 20,000 to 1 lakh rupees based on the investment that you're looking for. And this is free of any cost. As in, you do not have to run around or do not do anything. They'll send you, they actually, I think, accept invites, accept applications. I think twice a year, if I'm not wrong. I don't know what the post-COVID situation is like. So you just need to go there on the day, present before a panel. If you get selected, you get funded, you get a space to work. It is that simple. Kerala Startup Mission is, I'm sure people from Kerala would already be known. Kerala Startup Mission is a very, very good place for startups to bloom. It is not meant for student startups, but if you go down, if you get incubated at CITIC, if you're doing really well there, you can proceed towards, if you can proceed towards getting yourself incubated at Kerala Startup Mission. And trust me, there are so many startups that have done very, very, very well after they have reached Startup Mission. They've earned a lot of investment after they have reached that position. Resources, go to YouTube, Coursera, Pluralsight is another thing, but most of these is not, this is not free, but then they give out stuff for free. Quite often, just keep a lookout for times when things go free and make utmost advantage of it. Medium blogs, I am sure you know of Medium. Medium is where people can write anything and publish to the world. Medium blogs are another place where people write about their projects, write about new tech that they might have learned and all that. This meme is what your life as a computer science student and as a professional will look like from here onwards. Your code will mostly be a result of Google search and Stack Overflow. So I wanted to introduce you to Stack Overflow, which is why this meme is here. Stack Overflow is a place where people report errors that they might have got while they were building, say, an application or some random task, and then some random technical task, and then people will come down and answer to see to give an answer to their problem. So if you have an error in your code today, you just copy, paste it to Google, and you will have a Stack Overflow answer to it. Stack Overflow is the answer to your professional life. Freebies, yes. This is what I had been talking about. This is the main thing you should look out for when you're going to events. All the free developer events, all the free community events, all the free hackathons, all the paid hackathons as well. There are certain paid hackathons. You go there, you return with all of this stuff. You return with good friends. You return with our stronger potential network, professional network. You return with a lot of, so all these pictures, if you see, are not Google images. I managed to get these images from everybody in the TSC group. So there are t-shirts that you get, hoodies that you get, books that you get, laptop stickers, water bottles, free Red Bull to drink, great food, everything that you would like to have is there in a particular hackathon. So never, never, ever miss a hackathon if you're going to, or a community event to generalize. Um, that is it from my side. I want to really thank you for being patient. If you want to connect with me professionally, this is my LinkedIn handle. If you want to maybe share some memes, this is my Instagram handle. And like I mentioned, we also have a Medium blog for Makeathon where people from not only from SOE, people from other colleges, they share their experience, the projects that they did, everything. A lot of things related to tech, they jotted down to our Medium publication. So uh, I would suggest you go follow Write a Byte, which is the name of our Medium publication. Thank you so much for staying in. If you have any questions now, you can shoot at me. I'll just go through the chat and look at questions if I have any. Anish, yes, yes. All I see is pizza. You will see pizza at a lot of places. If not pizza, you will find very, very, very good uh, eatables. Let me say, you will find free coffee and everything that you can think of is there. So yes, it is a place that you could be. If you have any more questions, please feel to ask me. I wanted to give you an idea of what the college is like because I don't think most of you have been to the college yet. So how to get into programming for a beginner? Okay, so in the first year of college, you will be taught C programming. C is a language. You will be taught C programming. C is very simple to get into. C is I think C is apt for a programmer to begin his programming life. Learn C. Also make an habit of Googling things. uh, just make a note of, I think I'll share the slides with Abhinav. Uh, just go through the slides, the resources, I mean, and just make sure you visit these resources somehow and get an idea of things that you're getting into first, because I've seen a lot of people starting their journey and then sticking into a particular domain. Let's say if you start with web development today, do not stick with development for the next 3 years of college. Try web development, try let's say uh, try both the development as in web and mobile, try a little bit of designing, try a little bit of cyber security, because until and unless you get a feel of everything that is out there for you, you will not understand what you really like. Do not stick into one particular thing. So to answer your question, to get into programming, learn C programming, make good use of your internet, watch good YouTube tutorials, and get in touch with your seniors. That is very, very, very important. Get in touch with them. Do not hesitate to ask doubts. They might not be in a situation to answer you every time, as in they might not be free every time, but then I am sure they will get back to you with an answer or with the contact of a person who will have an answer to this. So yeah, I think that answer your questions. If you want more details, you can let me know. Anything else you want? I am surprised you do not want to know anything about your college. I'm not sure. So, Ajnas, I will get your question. Anybody, can you guys type down in the chat if you can to let me know if you have been to the college at least once, if you've had a tour of college at least once. Give me a yes if you've already been there. Is there anything like Offset Academy in Kusat? Ajnas, I'm not sure what you're asking. Could you unmute yourself and ask? I don't think I know what you're really asking me. Or I am from BC. No mic. Okay, sorry. Ajnas, what you can do is you can you guys have already been added to a DSC group. So I think Ajnas, you can find me there in the group. Look for my name, Siddharth Shivkumar, and you can text me personally because I don't know. I don't really understand your question at this point. So one, two, three, four people have been to college. Nice, cool. The others have not been to college, I think, yet. But let me say you are getting into a good place. You have a lot of, so the main advantage of being in COSAT would be Kochi on the whole, because Kochi is the happening place for everything tech and everything otherwise as well in Kerala, I would say. So you have a very big exposure. You have 4 years of college to experience things. You're getting into a very good place, let me say. Offensive Security Academy. Okay, okay, that is what you're asking me. So Ajnas, no, we do not have an offensive security academy. Most of it, like Abhinav just mentioned, you will have to put in an effort from yourself to learn certain stuff. But then once you have the basic setup, you will have a contact with a lot of people. Get in touch with people from communities. Go to community meetings, which might be happening online right now. You will find a lot of people who share similar interests as you have. Then you can ask them about the path ahead. So I think that answers your question. We do not have an offensive security academy here, but that is something you can look into if you get in touch with other people. Yeah, we are already out of time. I think I finished right in time. If you have any other questions, uh, Abhinav, can I take one more question if that if the
Yeah, sure, Siddharth. You can.
Okay, I'm actually from Kusek. Are these opportunities available for us also, and are these SOE exclusive program? No, 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 no. None of these things that I mentioned right now is exclusively for SOE. If you are in Kusek, you have. I'm really sorry. I think I went wrong when I said Kochi was your advantage. Kochi is an advantage if you're right there. But let me tell you, you can always travel from Alleppey. If you're in Alleppey, you can always travel to Kochi for events. That is not a problem. Once the COVID situation eases, you have local trains running, right? So that wouldn't be a problem. Nothing here was SOE exclusive. Everything is inclusive. We are from one particular university, Cochin University. So everything that was said here is applicable to both people from Kusek and SOE. I hope that answers your question. If you have any other question, you can get in touch with me with I think on LinkedIn or maybe I would prefer WhatsApp. Do not judge me for being on WhatsApp still, but you can get in touch with me on WhatsApp if you want to. Ashwin Kumar, you do not have to call me sir. For that matter, you will be forced to call your senior sir sometimes. That is part of making friends with your seniors in college. That happens. Take that lightly. You do not have to call me sir here. So Abhinav, I think I'm good to finish the meet. Thank you so much
Yeah.
to the DSC team for giving me this opportunity. Thank you to all of you for staying in, holding on to this for so long. I hope I could give you something that you could take with you back home. If you have anything else to talk about, please shoot your questions in the DSC first years group, or you can get in touch with me personally on WhatsApp. Thank you so much, Abhinav. Thank you so much, all of you. Abhinav, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Siddharth. So, like when I asked him for the session, actually he was very busy with his work. So thank you, Siddharth, for so much for spending your time with us here and sharing these valuable information. So if you have any further doubts, you can ask in the group. So if you have like any doubt of how to get started, all of these are nothing that you can learn in 1 year or something. You can like break down your time and try to learn these things one by one, and you can be good at that in 1 or 2 years. So it's very important that you know all these stuffs in first year so that you don't regret in your upcoming years. So once you know this things, you can get started later. Okay, so we'll be planning some sessions for you to get started in all these domains. So because of the upcoming exams, we cannot start it soon. So we'll be, informing you in the group about all the sessions. And like apart from DSC, try to be active in all the groups in and around the campus, Cochin and Kerala, so that you will get exposure from everywhere. So thank you guys for joining us. So that's all for today.